This is the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting. It's Monday, the 19th of March. It's 6 o'clock, and we are in the administration building. Ms. Van Twyver is here, Ms. Raymond is here, Ms. Timmons is not here. Mr. Garino, our alternate, is here, and he will have a vote tonight. We have Dr. Mosley, and I believe that's it, right?
No, we have Dr. McKinney.
Excuse me. Got the wrong doctor. I don't know. Maybe by the time I finish my term, I'll have this down pat.
And they both start with M, so.
I know. Oops, now I marked Miss Fitzpatrick. Let's get the right, Dr. McKinney, right here. Here.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so tonight we're going to have a discussion on Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system. And I'm really looking forward to this because I know very little about the whole process of reading education in the elementary school. So you're on.
Okay, so we'll do a little overview of the purpose and the components of it and the data that we use to inform instruction. So we'll start with the explanation and purpose. So this assessment system allows teachers to determine kids' independent reading level, so where they can read by themselves with a higher degree of accuracy and comprehension, as well as their instructional level, which is usually one level higher. Teachers observe students and have a reading conference. They listen to them read aloud. They ask them comprehension questions. There's a written portion. They assess their fluency, and they do that in both fiction and nonfiction text. The BAS is worked alongside the literacy continuum. When you think about the levels from A to Z, this book provides all the resources teachers would need for determining more assessment, for planning their teaching, and doing their guided reading. So there's a whole section in the back in blue that talks about, here's level K. What kind of things should I be doing when I'm teaching kids at level K? What are some of the key level behaviors they should be doing? There's a whole other section on writing, some practicing of writing in beginning, middle, and end. There's a part on word study, so if I'm bringing that into my guided reading group, what should I be looking for kids in that area? As well as mini lessons or an interactive read aloud when I do a whole group lesson. How do I model that for kids so they have a vision of what the expectation is? So this book, while very comprehensive, is a wonderful resource that works alongside the assessment that we do with kids one-on-one.
Are you willing to take questions along the way on each slide?
It's an intimate audience here. I think we could do that.
Thank you. BAS is the acronym for Benchmark Assessment System.
Yep.
When you said independent and instructional reading levels, I know that there are books that are a certain level.
Yep.
Right? And what is the instruction reading level? How does that compare to the books that they're reading?
So these are examples of level books. So this is a level B, a little more simple. You can see by the text that it's not as comprehensive as, say, a chapter book.
Okay.
So if this was going to be their independent level, they'd have to read about 90% of the words accuracy and maintain comprehension. Instructional level is 95%. It's a little higher than that. So it's okay that kids struggle just a little bit reading this because they would be with a teacher that would help and support them, model the strategies, and help fill in gaps with comprehension.
So if a teacher had to do it, you would had to help them along with the book, then the teacher would mark them as an instructional reading level different than their independent reading level. Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I get this. Don't forget it too easily.
Yep.
And the continuum of literacy learning.
Oh dear.
Nothing happened. Okay.
Are we going?
Yeah,
so
we're
okay.
back.
We had a little pause there for getting the recording device on. So the continuum of literacy learning is what? That's the book?
Yes.
That's what you're referring to when you say that. Yes, to report. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about it? This. All right. Let's go on to the next slide.
So all kids in kindergarten through 5th grade are assessed in trimester 1 and trimester 3, so the beginning and the end of the year. The kids in the middle are the ones that we give the assessment to who are not meeting grade level expectations, or the teacher feels they need more information on their readers. So if they've been slowly progressing or not progressing in the levels, we give that again to see what else is going on. Maybe we need to change our interventions, maybe we need to focus on a different area, so that mid-year 1 is important for those students. And then teachers can give it at any point during the year if they feel the need warrants it, so they could re-administer it. The only challenge with that is there's only so many sets of a book at a level, so I can't keep giving you B over and over again, because you're going to get the hint of the story after a while, I would think. So you can only do it.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So we only do it when we really need to.
Okay, so once again, it's an oral it's an oral test, an oral assessment. Yep.
What it would look like to start, it's all copyrighted, so I apologize for not putting it all out there, but what it would look like would be, Elizabeth, here's a book on dinosaur hunters. I want you to read this passage aloud,
Okay.
and it would be a couple of pages, and there'd be like a star. And I said, I want you to read till here, but while you're reading, can you think of the 3 ways they go about finding evidence of dinosaurs from a long time ago? So go ahead, when you're ready, read it aloud. So you would read it aloud, you'd have the book in front of you. I would have a copy of the text, and I'd be making notes of the words you get correctly, incorrectly, skip, replace, and I'm also timing you for your oral reading fluency from getting from one point in the book to the other part.
And the question that you asked the child to think about is going to be buried in that section? Or is it going to be more of an envisionary thing they have to do?
It's more of a prompt, because we would stop at that point. I would take some notes, and then they would read the other part of the book, most likely quietly to themselves.
Okay.
And that would let me finish my scoring for that part. And then when they came to the end of reading it silently, then we'd have that conversation. I was like, all right, well, tell me about the book.
And how long do the testing periods for an individual student last? How long does it take the teacher to do that?
I mean,
Anywhere from 5 minutes to 10, 15 minutes, or
certainly
longer?
depends on the kid and the book. So a shorter book like this, that's a simple text, is not going to take a long time. Once you get into higher levels like these, it is going to take a little bit of time. Sometimes the challenge is the kids, some are word callers, what we call. They're really good at reading exactly what's in the book. But then when you have that comprehension conversation with them,
That's me.
They don't.
I read it, but I don't
That's what I was
remember
gonna
it.
say. That's what
I think my
that's what I used to
generation
do when
had
I
a lot
was
of
in
problems
school.
with comprehension. They didn't push that as much, because I know that my comprehension is not as great, and I have to read some things more than once
Right.
to really grasp
So then I
it.
might go down to a lower level and read that book again.
Okay.
But then when I had that student and guided reading group, I would say, one thing good readers do is they engage and they self-monitor in the text. So for you to keep focused in the text, I want you to be writing on a sticky note some important things as you read. So I'll model that for you, and I'll show you when I read here 2 or 3 important things. And then I do it when they read too. So then the teacher would have, the horseshoe kidney table, me watching them. Where's your sticky note? Give me one more important thing. And then they practice that, so that way they move back up in a level to where they are.
And this is done, you say, in the horseshoe, the reading group?
It can be, yeah.
Well, a teacher has something like 20, 25 students, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how, do they do this individually, all in one day? Do they do it sitting, like you said, in the horseshoe, like we do at the board?
The assessment or the guided reading? The assessment they do one-on-one. That
One-on-one.
we usually do that in the first couple of weeks of school.
Okay, first couple of weeks. And then the teacher records it how? In a database of some sort, I
Yep.
assume?
Yep, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Yep.
So when they do the assessment, the student, you said it's one-on-one, they're not reading in front of the whole class, they're just reading in front of the teacher?
Just read in front of the teacher.
Because sometimes that makes a difference with kids.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause
Sure it
when-
does.
Yeah,
I'm shy.
I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
But,
I
Really?
see
Wow.
some teachers do it like right by their desk. There are
Yeah.
others that just sit in the hallway. I've seen 2 teachers on the ground, just right next to each other. And the kids got their book and they're reading along, and they're all with the clipboard. So
Yeah.
it's not like a speech class in high school where
Yeah.
you're in front of everybody.
Yeah, okay.
So out of curiosity, how does the teacher decide on, I'm thinking about our kindergartners or the kids who come into us first grade for the first time. How do they decide which book to start with on the assessment? Because I'm thinking some students might be on grade 1, totally fine with that, and they're going to get a 95, but really maybe they should not be on a B. Maybe they should be on a C or a D. Like, how does the teacher evaluate which book to start with?
At the younger levels, there's two things. There's the sight word list that we have that teachers give and paras give, so that could be a baseline for that. And then there's a word list that goes with the BAS before you give the assessment, so that helps narrow down where kids most likely would be. Because
Okay.
these are rated not only by the number of words, but the complexity of words in the sentence structure. So if they can handle like a vocab list of certain words, they're most likely going to be somewhere. Because you're right, without that, you could be surfing up
Right.
and down the alphabet, and the little person in front of you is not going to have that.
Right,
they're
I
good
don't-
for like 1 or 2 books, and then it's over.
Done, I'm cooked, I'm tired.
Yep.
Right, at which point their patience for that is over, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay.
So we kind of talked a little bit what it assesses. So fluency, how you can read the text accurately, quickly, and with expression. So comprehension within the text, about the text, and beyond. So the literal, print, Q&A questions, inferential, and then also determining what's the author's purpose. Are they writing to inform? Are they writing to persuade? Why do you think the author wrote the book they did?
Depending on the level, what grade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The teacher will look at the number of errors, so meaning, syntax, visual miscues, monitoring self-corrections. Good readers notice when they make a mistake and they either reread or they change the word that they made a correction on and read it again. And then a lot of them at the upper levels, once you get to about here, there's a little writing about reading that kids do independently. That's optional for teachers, but many of them find it helpful in seeing how kids not only just have the reading conference, but can they apply their thought written and then give it back to the teacher. So we talked about instructional and independent levels. So placement for level for guided reading. So I could look at my list, all my 20 kids, and I could see all their levels, and I could form groups based on that. So here is one group around a level L, here's another group that's a level S, and another group that's at another level, and I could see how many kids I could have in a group, about 4 to 6 in my guided reading group, and they would come together and work on some of the similar skills that they need to be working on based on the assessment that I gave to them.
And that comes from this book over here, probably. And they're working on that sort of thing?
This book, these books are awesome because if I were teaching, let's see, we have level L, this talks about goals and things that kids at this level have, their characteristics, the characteristics of the text, but not only that, what kind of goals do they need to be working on so they can move into the next level.
Okay.
So this is more like a supplemental resource. This is also in the BAS, but this is another way to look at it. So this is more for the teacher application in the classroom. Sorry.
No, I'm just curious what the teachers are doing for our outliers. So I assume most of our kids are on the bell curve, but there's going to be 1 or 2 kids who are,
I would say, what kind of liars?
no, outliers. So 1 or 2 kids are going to be
The other end of
probably
the bell curve.
significantly like lower, and you might get a kid who's reading, a couple levels beyond where everybody else does.
Right.
Do they just kind of fit them in? Do we have a program for that?
Yep. So
I'm
if
especially concerned about the, the outliers on the lower end.
we just go to our little sheet, the last sheet here.
Oh, okay, you have a chart. I love charts.
This is
So
the first time I've seen this one.
this gives you the expectations where kids should be on grade level during the course of the year, and you can see meets, exceeds, approaches, or does not meet. So if we just picked a grade level, say you're a first grade teacher in the first part of the year, kids below level E, those were the ones that would come to guided reading group every day with the teacher and make sure they're getting that resource.
Okay.
The kids that, we have another chart that we use of your neediest kids, they need to be with the most qualified people most of the time. So they would see the teacher every day, as well as probably go out to an intervention teacher, a Title I teacher, another resource. And then the kids that you're asking on the other end, I might check in with them once or twice a week, because most likely they're reading books that are like this.
Yeah.
And they're more on like a novel study, and I just check in with them, and I meet with them, and I see how they're doing, ask them to read a couple of parts, do a running record, make sure they're still on target of fluency and not making mistakes, and then they're back on their own. And they could be other kids that could be buddies to them, they could be helping in the classroom, but those high flyers are being challenged with print and written applications because they're on a different
Are
level.
these book numbers? D, C, D, and E plus? Or is that?
Right, so that would be
Yeah.
the level of the book, so this would be a level B. So all
Right.
books are level.
And they go up, the higher the alphabet number, the more difficult, right?
Yep, so Z's all the way down here, like 8th grade.
Yeah. So I just kind of got confused. You said E was the one that would be moving with the teacher every day.
Oh, no, okay, I think you mean C.
Did you mean C? I thought I heard you say, okay. So, all right, now that's okay now. Cross off that little error I made there. Very good.
Yeah,
So if you just look at, you were going back
The
to
yellow.
yeah, the yellow.
Okay, this is every day. And E you said was once a week, maybe? Did you say? The green? How often would they be meeting with the teacher?
Oh, once or twice a week.
Once or twice?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's usually one teacher in paras, or what?
Well, let's stay with this kindergarten end of year as an example. So these readers that are below C, they would see the teacher in a guided reading group,
Yep.
and then they would also see probably a title teacher, and this is, you're a slide ahead, Ms. Van Driver.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They get LLI, it's a leveled literacy instruction.
Okay.
It's made by the same company, Fontes Pinnell, that makes the benchmark. That program is to help accelerate kids' growth in reading. And what they do is, there's a term of old read and new read. Just like when, we all have books that we enjoy, we read them over and over again. They take steps backwards, they read an old read, build up fluency, and then they move up a level to challenge them and do a new read.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but
That's
it
good.
also,
That's good too. I mean, kids love to read the same thing over and over and over.
I know, I used
Yep.
to read to my brother all
Yep.
the time.
Yep.
Forever.
and the one thing I would
Saggy
say about
elephant.
this is, we don't want to say to kids that you are an S, like you're pigeonholed there. You can be reading if you want to challenge yourself, like your friends are reading Harry Potter and you want to try it, that's fine. But this is where you need to be when you're in group with me, so I can help you. But other than that, when kids go to the library, it doesn't mean you can only go to that one little level S part of the library. It's okay to be reading books that you loved before, or going down a level or two.
As long as you're reading.
20 minutes a day,
20 minutes a day, is that all?
at minimum. We welcome more.
Yeah, I know. I
Is
do
that
more
20
than that.
minutes at home or 20 minutes during the school day?
No, I was just talking at home.
At
Yeah.
home, yeah. Okay.
They read a lot more than that.
I was like, wow, that seems
Yeah,
level.
I was just gonna say, didn't I ask that question? I thought about how long the periods are for reading. When you're
90
teaching
minutes.
reading, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you told me that once before,
Okay.
but retention, All right.
Out of curiosity, are these books available to go home, or is it only the library books that are on the same level-ish that are available to go home with kids? To help promote that 20 minutes at home.
They can take, it depends on the school. A lot of the library books obviously are take home.
Yeah.
And schools are at different places with like a take-home library. Like when I was a reading specialist, I had a take-home bag with kids, and they would go book shopping and take books and take them home. Some have a more expansive book room than others. Pretty much any title that you get right now, you can go online and go to Scholastic Book Wizard, for example, and type it in, and it'll tell you exactly what the level is. Teachers use that as well. If they don't have enough. Say I need 5 copies of this book, but I only got 4. I might go grab another one from a library and look for a similar one. So
Can mom and dad buy these online?
these books,
The
yeah,
level
at
they
the
can?
Scholastic Book Fairs and everywhere else.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, I've seen the Scholastic at the
The
Y.
National Public
Yeah.
Library
Yeah.
just had a
I've seen
big
them at the Y.
Yeah,
Public Library just had a big book sale.
yeah.
Churchill
When-
had their
Okay.
Scholastic last week.
When my kids were at Sunset Heights, what they did was, the teachers used to have the book, I think it was Scholastic books. So we used to buy books for our kids, and then they would ask the parents to buy a book and donate it to their
Yeah.
class.
Cool.
Oh,
So-
I can do that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we used to buy one book for the class every time around, buy whatever our kids wanted.
I best one book
They're
for
not
the
that
best reader.
expensive. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And that's
And that-
so,
they-
and that's been
really
part of the
like-
challenge, because some teachers have been here a while, they benefited from those donations, or
Yeah.
they've used their points from Scholastic and bought books. So
Yeah.
some classrooms have a bigger library than others, so we're
Yeah.
going around trying to assess how do we get more books deployed, because if you stay with this model, if you play this out over the course of a year, kids are going to go through a lot of books.
Mhm.
They're going to go through a lot of guided reading, and then they can be reading on their own. So we need more options to get more books into schools.
Right, and there's only so many times you can read the same book before it falls apart also.
Yes.
you know?
Yeah,
Right.
it's just like a library,
Right.
yeah.
But they do build their libraries for, you know, when the parents donate it, so when they have a new class the next year, they have all those books for their.
Well, they're supposed to have classroom libraries anyways. We
Yeah.
spend $50,000 a year on
Right.
it.
They
And
do.
I've seen that in the classrooms. They have like little
Oh, yeah.
bins, and each bin has a letter on it in the lower grades.
Mhm.
And kids know which bin they're choosing from. But, I don't know.
All right?
So the other ways we use the data is for effective and efficient instruction, both in a whole group, small group, and individual instruction for teaching, prompting, and reinforcing the habits that good readers do. And then it's all about the workshop model. Whoops. So that's what we're committed to, both in reading and writing. This idea of a small mini lesson, no more than 10 to 15 minutes, and then guided reading, word study, and then a closing at the end. So when you talked about that 90 minutes, kids are in a reading group for about 30 minutes. Those other times they're working independently on their reading, and then they're doing some word work, either with a partner or a para or another teacher. So that's all fit into that literacy block.
It's interesting that they work with a partner. When I helped out last year with Amherst Street, I had a young boy and a young girl, fourth
Mhm.
graders I think they were, and I was interested in seeing that they're willing to help each other.
Cool.
I was just shocked at that.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, wow, that was really cool.
Mm.
So I like that, we're helping each other,
Oh, it is.
teaches them good skills and.
Well, that daily five
Communication.
piece at the younger grades, I mean, I've seen classes where they cheer, they just love daily five time
Really?
to
I have to
read
go and
with
see
a-
that.
read with a buddy, or they get to read with the teacher. I mean, they think that is awesome.
Wait, so tell me about the Daily Five. What is that exactly?
Daily five is like a framework that helps most of our younger grades understand the structure of Reader's Workshop. So within a 90-minute block, they would do 3 rounds of activities. So one is read to self, read with a partner, and word work, where they read with a teacher. So the teacher sets a timer, they go for like 20, 30 minutes. The bell sounds, and then they know, all right, we're moving to station number 2 or rotation number 2, and they look at a big chart and they know where to go and what to do. So that's
Oh,
one of
okay,
those,
so it's the
they have those
5
buckets, they would take
activities,
the
yeah.
bucket and they go read with a partner, or they read by themselves, or, you know, you're gonna come read with Dr. McKinney today, come over and you're gonna be in a group.
Okay.
Kids are spoiled today.
Well, I love it.
I didn't get daily 5. I was looking.
I have to say, I really enjoy seeing the kids in the classrooms all over the place, like reading. Like you know, you don't necessarily see, you see 1 or 2 kids kind of sitting at their desks being very formal about it. But I've seen kids like laying on the carpet or, you know, lounging someplace else. So,
It's not formal.
no, but it's
It's
nice.
not formal, but kids really like the opportunity to have choice. They like having responsibility. They're proud of the accomplishments they make.
And if they're not
So-
distracted by their body feeling uncomfortable, then they can really focus on what their brain is trying to do.
Other ways we use the data, we talked about intervention. We talked about monitor and report student progress across a year in grade levels. So now that this is our second year, teachers, when they came back to school this year, we were able to give them a list of their students and say, this is where your kids are on their reading level based on the end of last year's assessment, so they could already get an idea of where their class makeup would be. And then they did their fall benchmark assessments, and then they monitor them during the course of the year. It helps set reading goals. We talked about the learning continuum. We did mention LLI, and ensure kids are on just right books. So we talked about their instructional levels, but we want them in a book where they can maintain accuracy and fluency, but also maintain comprehension, something that's not too challenging for them, where they may give the appearance that they're reading during independent reading time, but they're really not getting the full benefit of that 20, 30 minutes. So the strengths of this are that all schools are using these assessments to create interventions and guided reading groups.
All 12 all 12 elementary schools are using it.
Yes. And this is also changing our instruction in grades 3 to 5 based on those parts I talked about beyond, within, and around the text. So getting all the levels, inferential and literal thinking. More students are in just the right book for independent reading, and kids are getting the instruction that they need at the right level that works for them, as opposed to if you had a textbook like that size in front of everybody, that's not going to work for everybody because you all could have 3 different levels. But if we differentiate it and make it at the right point, then I can challenge all of you with the level of the text, the level of the demand, the level of the writing, all of those things.
Could you go back to the second bullet, please? Changing our instruction in our 3 to 5 based on the comprehension conversation prompts for beyond and within the text comprehension. Those are great words, but I don't quite understand how you're changing things. That's for grades 3 through 5, right? Based on the comprehension conversation prompts for beyond and within the text comprehension. Oh, you're ready? Okay.
Yeah, I probably should have made you one of these. So this, when they say within, about, and beyond, this is a diagram. So when we talk about, this is where we're talking about critiquing and analyzing the text and why the author wrote what they wrote. And this gives you an understanding of within the text and then beyond the text. Because before in those grades, a lot of them would do like a book study. We're all reading Matilda, and I give you questions, and you read chapter 4, and you talk about the characters, and give me a little bit about plot. This opens it up to more analytical thinking at 3 different levels for kids.
You mentioned that before too on the previous slide, right? You talked a little bit about that, giving them questions to think about.
When you start an assessment?
Remember that? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's sort of what this is about?
Mm-hmm. A little more in depth.
So how does that actually play out in the classroom? So you have your group, they're reading Dinosaur Hunters. Is there in here like a lesson plan where the teacher would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about, how did they excavate dinosaurs, or today we're going to talk about this. Like, is there like sample questions or guidelines that teachers have to follow so that they can ensure that they're hitting all of these things?
They're not exactly like lesson plans. There's suggestions in there, but then they go to like a mentor text. So I could read a picture book and model for my mini lesson in 10 minutes of today when we read, we're going to work about making connections. Remember, there are 3 types of connections. There's text to self, text to text, and text to world. So have you ever had an experience similar to this character who got a new puppy? That would be text to text. If you had ever had a time when the puppy wasn't doing what you wanted it to do, that would be text to self. Or if you've ever seen anybody out in your neighborhood who's gotten a new puppy and things don't go well, that would be text to world. So boys and girls, when
Okay.
you're reading today in your independent reading books,
Got it.
or when you come to guided reading group, we're going to work on making connections, and we're going to try to find those 3 different types.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the challenge there is why we're looking to get more resources for next year is this gives some ideas, but you can see the way this book is laid out. It's kind of text, very dense.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for some things that teachers can get their hands on more quickly that can say, all right, here's a book set on making connections with a card and some books, and I can just put it in front of myself and I can read it and then be ready to deliver instruction. Right now, they'd have to turn to this page, navigate all this print, create their lesson plan, go find the materials, all that stuff. So we're trying to be more strategic and efficient with teachers' time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our last one, our goals going forward. Continue coaching teachers in the assessment. So this is only our 2nd year. I think going forward, we're working on being more and more consistent. The hard part about some of this is it's subjective a little bit, so for some of the questioning. So the more PD we do and the more consistent we can be, the more obviously the valid the data would be.
And so there's no computer involved in testing at all? So you don't have that problem where kids can't just hit an answer, just keep hitting buttons until they get done with the test. And you don't have the problem of they're being too slow and taking forever to take?
They can't really hide, they're stuck with a teacher in a reading conference. There's no getting out of it.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, there's no computers involved in this at all, in the assessment? Just
I
want to make
guess
that clear.
only like maybe a stopwatch or a calculator. There's a little bit of math involved, but on that, that's about it. Using professional development on how to use the data. So that's been a growth this year of saying, all right, here's my class list. I have X number of, S readers and L readers. What's the best way for me to use my literacy block to move all of these kids along? So taking the results and going to resources like this and then making instruction happen for kids and finding all the resources.
This literacy block you're talking about is the 90-minute period?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're gonna say something?
No, I'm waiting.
Setting one-year growth targets, so just like on this chart, this is what's expected for all kids. We still have that expectation that all kids are going to make a 1 year's growth, even though we have a lot of kids that are coming in behind grade level or come into a district and haven't had consistent schooling. But we want to kind of keep to these levels all the way through and use the resources we have like LLI and Title I and to accelerate growth for all kids so they're reading on grade level. So the data part, this year we're collecting it just at the school. We've been using kind of spreadsheets in Excel for a school and having tabs by grade level and then being able to sort those by a grade level and see where are the bulk of those kids reading and those that are, like we said, in yellow or approaching expectations. What kind of intervention can we give them? Do we have enough space in LLI groups? Can we deploy paras, Title I teachers, special needs teachers to go out and help during those literacy block, ELL teachers, whoever we have.
Why can't you collect district-wide at the same time that you're doing the school-wide? Can't you just roll it all up?
We started this year just at the school because it's the second year, and we assured teachers that we weren't going to use the data to assess them, but assess how our kids are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year we're looking for an efficient way to bring all that up.
Is there any way that you can convince these teachers that we're not there to criticize them, that we're there just to see how well the students are learning? We hear that all the time, that they afraid that the data is going to be used against them.
Mhm.
And that's not the purpose. I mean, it never has been the purpose since we started this a couple years ago with our data analyst, And I don't know, I just don't understand why they wouldn't consider it a help or an aid to their teaching ability to be able to see it, but.
The thing about data is that it's fluid, it's static, it's dynamic rather, it's always changing. So when you collect data, you have a snapshot
That's
of
right.
what it was like at that time.
That's right.
And things are constantly changing.
Well,
That's why usually I guess you do the beginning of the year and the end of the year. That's probably the best times to do it. But that's so I think sometimes teachers are a little bit wary of that, probably because because like I said, it's a dynamic system. It's constantly changing. There's a lot of things that enter into it.
a lot of things are changing, in
Right.
everyday life, but if you don't
Right.
take a snapshot
Right.
now, there's no
Right.
way of determining
Right.
whether you're going to change
The thing
it.
about data is that it's nice to have a lot of data, but you have to compile it and you have to present it in a meaningful way. It's not the quantity of data, it's the quality of data. That's important when you collect this data. And I think that gets lost, especially when it goes to the public. I think that gets lost in what exactly is going on. And what are you comparing it? And then people take this data and they compare it to other data, and they do all kinds of crazy things with it.
Well, you'll have to thank the New Hampshire Department of Education for that, because we've gone from NECAP to SSB, or
Yeah.
SBA, and now we're going to go to
Right.
SAS.
Right.
There's no way of
Right.
that was why iReady came into the picture, was
Right.
because of that problem, that there was no way to get a continuum of the data so that you know that you are making progress, but let's
Right,
go.
I'm just playing
Right.
devil's,
Not argue
I'm
this
just playing
anymore.
I'm playing devil's advocate. No, I agree that we need, it's, you know.
Doesn't look very
I
good.
agree
It
that we
doesn't
need
look very good when you
good
come to
data.
the budget meeting and you,
Yeah,
they
no,
they
you're-
see, well, your grades are going down.
Yeah, no, you're
Your test
right.
results are going down. It doesn't look very good.
Right.
All right.
But you can't, it's apples and oranges, your point, right? You can't compare the two different kinds of.
Well, even if you just use the state,
Right.
the SBA, and you have to go to the alderman and say, hey, we need more money, and we're not, I mean, we spend a lot of money on
Right.
education, so.
So,
They need to see results. I need to see results.
yeah. So I do have
Thank
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to speak to that. My biggest fear of all this, the best part of all this is a teaching tool of
Mhm.
knowing where kids are, the characteristics of a kid that reads at level
Yeah.
B and how to get them to C.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want them to be known as only being a B or a label.
Yeah.
There's more going on there. But is it good to look at the school level? Because that's where it matters most. For a principal and a data team to sit down, let's look at third grade, tell me all the kids that are reading below grade level, and let's go through what we're doing for them and why aren't they making progress. To me, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if up at this
Me
level,
too.
I want to see it, but for them, they're the ones who are in charge of deploying their resources and sitting with the teacher and saying, how come we're not making progress? Is something else going on that's interfering, or do we need to change the interventions that we're providing?
The reason I like this system is because you have graded books that have a certain text. When we went to school, we didn't have anything like that. I don't even remember learning how to read, to be honest with you. But I think I got it by spontaneous combustion. But I really like that part of the educational tool here. The fact that you know that this kid can read so much. I like that an awful lot. I think that's a great asset. But let's go on.
I agree. I did have a question
Oh.
about, so I know we're in this collecting school-wide data section now. Do we have any information yet about how it's going? Like you were just talking about using that data to take the kids who are below grade level and maybe bump them up, go from a B to a C or and then a C to a D. Do we have any information about if we're seeing that kind of progress yet, or is it too soon to tell?
Progress for kid growth?
Yeah, kid growth. Because I mean, that's really what I care about. Is do we know if it's working? If
Mhm.
kids are going from B to C and C to D or whatever the case may be.
We only said 2 times that you collect the data, right?
Right? Is it too soon?
2 times last
Beginning,
year,
2 times
1
last
time
year.
this year, and then 1 time this
Yeah,
year.
one at the beginning of the year, one at the
Oh,
end of
so
the
it's
year. And
probably
you said
still
that you were
too
going to
soon.
come back in June to
June?
give us the information.
All right. So
I think,
I think I'm asking the question prematurely then.
no, that's
Well,
fine.
you're not asking it prematurely. I think it's important that you do have a
Mhm.
midterm, but
Right.
see they're making progress. But teachers would probably know that instinctively, just
For
from
those
dealing with
kids
kids.
that are in, just kind of approaching this gray area that need an extra dose, we're getting more and more LLI kits to
Yep.
schools. We have to do some more training in that, so we have more people on the ground, so we can accelerate that. I think teachers are learning to give the assessment more quickly and learning from the first time, because the good and bad of it is, you can put a kid in front of the computer and you can get a result, but if I see them and hear them reading and watch them, I get a lot more information.
Right.
And that does take more time, because you're one-on-one, and if you have 20 kids, so, and not all schools have the resources to help have people come in and accelerate through that, like Title I teachers, paras, and everything else. So we're working on that part, and maybe hiring subs sometimes to help expedite those 2 weeks. And then I think the next step, when you're talking about kid growth, is teachers knowing the workshop model and how can I leverage all of this together, because this is a lot to do on top of, this is just one subject. And then
Right.
you have to go do all the other stuff. So how can I make the best use of my time?
Just, Mrs. Van Twyver speaks a lot about remediation and making sure that we have focus on that. And I'm just curious, because this seems like it's just built to identify, kids who need a little extra help and then has a roadmap of giving it to them. I'm just curious how all of this is playing out with the resources we have to actually follow through.
I don't know, I just remember the third thing. The third thing is that I think we're getting to a place where now we have our reading specialists that have to be trained in things, multiple strategies beyond just LLI. So we have another one that's getting trained in Orton Gillingham, which is a specialized approach. We have another one that's getting trained in Wilson. So expanding their bag of tricks, because if you have a kid that's kind of taking off and then slows down and not going to make it towards the end of the year, well, what happened? Was
Right.
it the intervention? Did something else happen? So that's kind of where we are. So
Are you separating out the different groups of students at all and gathering data like ELL or IEP, separating those groups out to get
we know who
data?
they are.
You
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
So when you give your report
Oh, you
in
mean for
June?
this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you give your report in June, we can see whether the, what is the word I was going to use, the average student is making progress? Because I think that the other groups are maybe skewing the data so that you don't get a true picture.
Mhm.
Well,
We could do a composite and then break it down by,
I would call them contributing factors, you
Right.
know, because we have, our kids are, each kid is unique, but obviously there are some themes for,
Mhm.
you know, contributing factors that kids have that impact their ability to learn and move forward. And one of those is not speaking English, and another one might be that they have an IEP, another one might be, you know, trauma at home, we don't know.
Well, I'm not so
But-
interested in the trauma at home.
But do you know what I mean? Like those, there are some factors we can maybe control for and others that are out of our hands.
Well, I just have heard that we may not be giving the Spanish-speaking students the best education that we could. So it'll be interesting if you start at the beginning of the year and say, the ELLs are here, the 104s, you know, and the Spanish-speaking students
Mhm.
are here. And then at the end of the year, you can see if you're making progress.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be as much progress as with the average student, but as long as they're making progress, that would be acceptable to me. But I'd like to know that these are not skewing the results for the average student.
I would just say that we don't do all of it. We're in partnership with the family and the home environment. So
I know
like
that.
when I was
I
a
realize that.
title teacher, I had a kindergarten kid who came in from Russia, didn't speak any English, and that was a turnaround school. They expected all kids that would be at a C. So,
But see, that's not nice. You know
but
what I mean? To expect that school to have this child in there and them to do the same as Bicentennial or, you know, one of our other great schools.
but the mom, she did everything I asked her to do at home. She hired a tutor,
Oh
and
my
I'll never
goodness.
forget her face. Ariana, she could read. She was amazing.
Well,
She
I
was-
was saying, okay, you're saying the positive side, but I just want to make sure that that group of kids are getting what they want, what they need.
That's,
Yeah,
that's to me,
That's
yeah.
what I want to.
Do we have appropriate interventions, and can we see using these test scores, well, I guess they're not scores, but whatever, can we see during these
Assessments,
assessments if certain groups are in fact getting or not getting what they need? Like if we see, for example, ELL kids who are not progressing
Mhm.
the way that we would like them to, maybe that could be,
Even
an
if they're not doing it the
indicator
way
that
you
we
like
need
them
more.
to, that they're making
Right,
some kind of
or
progress.
change it up. Yep.
right, or different or more, that's just
Even
a-
the SBA could be done, so you could weed out those two. I don't know if they do. Every child is given a number. They don't, when they take the test. And it's not obvious to everybody in the world what number goes with what child. So you could do all the IEP students with one set of numbers, you know, give them one, assign them one set of numbers. The Latino speaking or you know, whatever speaking.
ELL.
I don't want to offend anybody, for God's sakes. And then one of the average students have a group of numbers that they're assigned, so that you could weed out those groups, even with the SBA. You could do that with iReady, too.
Right.
I don't understand why that wasn't done, or if it was done, why we didn't get data according to that scheme. But then I would say, I would just look at the average person and say, hey, they're doing damn well, we're doing great. But now if you go to somebody in the public, citizens, and, you know, you just have to say the grades went down. And look, Mr.
T-boom.
T-Boom, thank you.
Mhm.
I use a different name with him. Even, you know, he says, look, our grades are going down, we're not getting our money's worth. And then you could say, well, look, this is what we have. Our average students are doing great.
Hmm.
And the others are slower because, by natural reasons why, you know.
I would just,
Madam Chair, I have to leave, I'm sorry, I just wanted to,
You can leave?
I have to leave.
Oh,
I have
you're
to go
missing
to
the best part.
I know. I just
Okay,
wanted to.
you can catch it on ETV.
All right.
Tell them downtown we say hello.
Okay.
I would just, say that I think that when we're talking about average students, we have to include the whole of the student body because that's representative of everybody. We have to include, especially as our ELL, for example, population keeps growing. Our special ed students population continues to grow.
All the more reason to separate them out.
So,
You can give the total for the whole group, and then you do the individual ones.
Well,
Want to go on?
I think certainly we should be able to do that with the data.
Yeah, we should be. That's what I think. That's all I want. I just want to see how the average ones are doing. As long as they're doing well, I'm happy. But I don't want people in the public to know, I want them to know that if these numbers are not positive, and it's evidently across the country the same way, they're not, they went down this year, then this is why they went down.
Numbers went down across the country in
And what?
everything, or what are you referencing
Well,
that everything went
math
down?
and reading, math went down really well.
On the NAEP?
No, on the SBA,
Oh,
didn't they? All those districts that use the SBA, I believe.
SBAC,
Yeah,
in New Hampshire,
yeah.
or
Am I doing
across the country,
SBC? I'm
all
sorry.
the scores went down.
That's
On
what I
average.
understood.
Okay.
That's what I understood. And if that's not true, then I guess maybe.
I don't know, I've only looked here, but I'm happy to look.
Well, I think that's what I heard. I don't know where I heard it, but maybe I'm telling fibs. Maybe I'm telling tales out of school. I don't know, but that at least the state, I know that they all went down.
The challenge with those assessments is, the kids can take it, there's no,
Well, they got a computer.
Consequence.
Yeah, they got a computer.
right, they don't see it in the grade, it's on the report card. This, if you don't do well, you're gonna be back the next day with the teacher, back in reading group, going over the same thing. So the accountability factor is a little higher here than
Well, I agree
taking
with that.
something for somebody else,
I
and
agree with that.
it's too far removed for them to
Explain
know.
that to the state.
Well,
That's your job, man.
what I particularly like about this is
Yeah.
the engagement factor.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? And it's not just reading a book and taking a test on the book. It's actually having those discussions and getting that one-on-one
Mhm.
attention from the teacher and someone who's actually interested in how the text speaks to you. And I think that
Look, one-on-one
It's helpful
instruction
later.
is the best way
Well,
anybody can learn how to read. My brother taught his brother to read before he went to school,
Yeah.
so,
But
it
you'll
just
see
proves
kids
it.
that are still tracking when they're at a point where you shouldn't be using your fingers, you should just be able to read alone.
Mhm.
Or other kids who do the retell and they have the book closed
No.
and they forget a part and you can see them fidgeting with the book and you're like, it's okay, you can look back. And they're like, oh yeah. They know where it is though, they'll go right back to the book.
But that's okay if they have to go back and
Exactly.
look too,
That's
Yeah,
okay.
that's good.
But
Lots
you
of
can
us
see them
grown-ups
at the
have to do
beginning, they're
that
like,
sometimes.
what's that?
I said lots of us grown-ups have to do that
Exactly.
sometimes.
But
Um,
they don't always have that strategy when they're taking those high stakes tests, that the good stuff we teach them in the classroom doesn't always apply when you're on a computer, so.
I don't like all these computer tests. But it's showing my age.
Well, until we have a society of young people who are proficient in using a computer, we're still gonna have that thing intervene with their ability to take a test. So.
Well, I read an interesting, this is totally off, but I read an interesting thing. I think The Atlantic had it where they were talking about a study that was done about people's comprehension on the computer versus in text. And they found that most people in general do much better with a handheld text. And
That's
with
because
younger
we were
people,
trained on
right, with
on
younger
handheld.
people, they're doing better on like a computer screen,
Hmm.
but they don't have the later comprehension. Like they can answer questions immediately, but they don't remember it over time.
Retention, yeah.
Retention, that's the word I was looking
Wow.
The
for.
Macintosh proved that kids learn very well. They took to it naturally.
Mhm.
And if you start them off that way, then,
Right.
I mean, I don't like to read, I used to say, I don't like to read on the screen because it's not like a book. So once they started flipping the
Flipping the
pages on the screen, I said, oh, I can read this a little bit easier, because now I feel like I'm reading a regular book.
Mhm.
Right.
But until you get through the group that has learned my way, and the way the new kids are reading online, then
Yep.
it's gonna take,
And we're in a place where we're teaching kids both.
Both,
We
which
do
I think is
this
ideal.
here, and some of the free stuff, like you'll see, it's called Epic, Get Epic.
Mhm.
It's a free online, and they make a little library and they can go on and read their books. And now even like reading a Raz Kids, I think it's called, where they can read a little bit, then they take a little quiz, they read a little bit, take a quiz. They need to be able to do both, because both are gonna be important in their world of reading on a laptop, but also reading
but kindergarten
print.
kids, I mean, they do a lot of toys games on the computer, which is a beginning of them to get used to working on a computer. So I think it's just a matter of time before they'll probably throw away their hard copy books. Not me, though. I won't, ever.
Yeah, in time. Working on a computer and reading on one, and learning to read. I think through kindergarten, first grade, they're much better off in books like these before they get.
Well, I think so.
Well, it's
Yeah.
tactile. The process of
Yep.
learning, your initial learning, it is tactile. It is actually focusing and putting your finger on it.
Yep.
You can't do that with a touch screen.
And there's something magical
Yeah,
about
put
it.
a-
When the switch goes on and they start clicking with reading, it's like the coolest thing. Yeah,
To watch
I love
them
it.
do that,
They're
yeah.
just so proud of themselves.
Yep, it's exciting, it really is,
Mhm.
to see that they're actually beginning to read.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, excellent. I like this.
Well,
All right, well, we need more people to get trained, so if they'll sign you up, you can go out there and start assessing kids.
so is this the completion of your,
That's all I got for today.
all right, so then
Wow.
now I want to ask you a question. Madam President, who is used to be a first grade or second grade teacher, can't remember now which,
I don't-
suggested that she would like to go back to a previous group, I don't know what you call this, resource, than Fountas and Pinnell. I can't say that. And I can't remember the name of it now, but it's evidently it was in use before this came along, and I don't know when this came along, but
The DRA, DRA 2,
no, that's not it. It's one of the names I've heard many times, but, so I'll talk to her on her,
Reading Recovery.
no, it's a whole group of, it's like fountains, the whole thing.
Okay.
Like fountains and Pinnell. I want to say fountain, Fontes and Pinnell. But I'll talk to her about why she would prefer the other one as opposed to this, because this, I mean, it looks pretty good,
Right.
as far as I can see.
And it sounds expensive to start over again.
I'm not suggesting that, I just want to know why she felt that way.
Mm.
The other thing too is that on that list of things that on my spreadsheet that I gave you,
Mm.
you mentioned one of them before today, the ones that do remediation or ones that do, oh, come on. I'd like to have a presentation on those two.
Okay, you're
Do
gonna
you
have to
remember?
narrow that down for me.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
The LLI?
No, that's part of this, this is part, that's
Yeah,
part.
they work together.
But there was another one that starts with a G, I think. I don't know, I'll email you, because
Okay.
we need to talk about the next presentation anyways.
Yep.
What we're gonna do next month.
Yep, we could do that.
This has been very informative, and now I
Okay.
wanna sign up for a tour.
Yeah.
I wanna see it in action.
Well, I think
Yeah, I mean-
Dr. Mosley is setting up tours for the end of this month or beginning of April.
I wanna go, me,
Hmm.
okay? I
It's
don't want
open
anybody
house.
else with me.
Oh, well,
Except for
fine.
you.
You don't have to
Okay,
come
well,
at
that's
the
fine.
same time as me.
Well, you know.
It's like an open house, you can go to
Yeah.
the schools anytime during that time, so you'll
Okay.
get it in this week's packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this week's back?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Today's Monday, yep, you'll get it Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday
today's
for.
Monday.
Oh, okay. Next. So last time what he did is he said, like, anytime during this day, the principals will expect you, and
Mhm.
whatever's convenient, which worked really well for me to be able to schedule, like, this is the days that I'm going to do it, so I could
Mhm.
work everything else around.
Now, when you go, say, can I sit in on a reading class or sit with a reading specialist, or just say, yeah, we'll take you in, no problem.
I thought you and I were gonna go.
I can go too, I just need to know where you're going.
I'll arrange it with you.
Okay.
So, did you have anything that you wanted to, have we done everything on that list that Mr. Kaufman wanted? Do you
I'd
remember the
rather
list?
talk about that offline, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm glad to do that. So,
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
I don't know, you're gonna have to stretch your talks a little bit. We're not using 2 hours. Okay?
No, we certainly aren't.
No, great, that's all right. Look, when I was policy chair, I don't know how I did it, but we always met and finished in 2 hours' time, we did. We covered a lot of stuff, so, watching TV. These are my notes. Anything else? No, okay. You want to adjourn?
Yes, I'm certainly happy to adjourn.
Okay, me too. So we're adjourned at 6:55.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.